Coinbase is going public through a direct listing on April 14th, and as of most recently, they came out with a Q1 earnings call update, which was pretty mind-blowing. Shortly before that, they got valued at over $100 billion privately, which is pretty crazy, and imagine telling that to someone in the 1950s.
So you're saying there's a company going public, and it's valued at $100 billion?
Yeah, it's called Coinbase.
Coinbase? So they sell coins, no? Silver coins?
Not really. They help you get access to currency that actually lives on computers.
Computers? You're telling me that people buy currency that's not even real?
Yep, that's right.
And this company is going to be valued more than the combination of 3 of the highest, most valued stock market exchanges in the world?
Well, yeah, but you have to watch the video first.
Blasphemy! I think I'm going to stay in the 1950s.
Why are you talking like that?
I don't know. Isn't this how people in the 1950s talk? That's how I always envisioned it. Anyways, tell me more about the Coinbase IPO, you young whippersnapper.
What's up guys, Humphrey here. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're talking about the overly hyped up Coinbase listing to see if it's worth investing in. Today's format will be divided into 4 sections. First of all, we're going to be talking about what is Coinbase. Now this is going to be pretty short and sweet because Coinbase is pretty easy to understand. Number 2, we're going to dig into their financials, both their S1 financials and their recent quarterly report. Third, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of owning Coinbase shares. And fourth, I'm going to talk about if it's a worthwhile investment to invest in on day 1 and exactly what I'm going to be doing as well. Really quick, a large percentage of my viewers are actually not subscribed to my channel, so if you find this content valuable or in the very least a little bit funny, please subscribe to my channel. It is free and you can always change your mind. So number 1, what is Coinbase? Coinbase is an exchange where you can buy and sell cryptocurrency. Their business model is built on transaction fees alone, and it's become maybe the #1 place to buy cryptocurrency, at least in the United States, especially when it comes to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. If you do remember my video on how to buy Bitcoin, I actually made a transaction of over $1,000 to buy Bitcoin, and I was charged $15 on that transaction. So that's about a 1.5% transaction fee. In addition to allowing you to buy cryptocurrency where they charge pretty high fees, they have a couple other features in which they make money, including custody and what's called staking. Custody is basically the practice of them allowing you to store cryptocurrency on their platform for a fee. And staking is the process of holding your crypto funds in a wallet to help support the operations of a blockchain, thereby rewarding you with rewards, and Coinbase will take a small percentage of that. In short, Coinbase is an exchange where you can buy and sell cryptocurrencies, and once we dive into their financials next, you'll actually see that most of their revenue is made up of transaction fees alone. So let's talk about their financials because that's pretty important here today. Recently, they've been actually valued at over $100 billion, and the price per share that people were willing to pay in this private placement was over $373 per share. Now that was before the Q1 earnings report on April 6th. Now, as of Tuesday, April 6th, they actually reported some insane Q1 numbers, which we will get into along with their S1 filing. But first, I want to tell you guys that 96% of their revenue is actually derived from transaction fees, and keep this in your mind as we go throughout today's video. For their revenues in 2020, according to their S1 filing, they grew their revenue from $533 million in 2019 to just about $1.27 billion in 2020, which is about 139% increase year over year. Now, what's really crazy here is that in the Q1 of 2021, their revenue for just the first quarter was $1.8 billion alone. That's pretty crazy because that means in the first quarter of 2021, they made more in that quarter than the entire last year of 2020. In terms of net income, they earned $322 million in net income in 2020, which was their first profit. And for the first quarter of 2021, they earned about between $730 and $800 million in net income. That is also crazy as well. That means they made so much more net income in just this quarter alone than all of 2020 as well. Their user growth is much of the same story. In 2019, it was 32 million verified users. Then it was 43 million verified users in 2020. And as of Q1 2021, they have now reported a total verified users of 56 million users. But let's talk about their monthly transactional users. These are the monthly users that are actually active on the Coinbase platform. And they actually grew that from 1 million in 2019 to 2.8 million in 2020, and as of Q1 2021, that number has gone all the way up to 6.1 million active users. So we can see that their user base is growing astronomically. I mean, their user base is almost to the moon. We could probably see the moon from Coinbase's headquarters. This could also just be due to COVID and the whole growing crypto market and crypto story as a whole, especially because Bitcoin has gone up huge in price in the last year, as well as many institutions are starting to adopt Bitcoin and actually accept Bitcoin as payment. Coinbase's market share, measured as assets on platform as a percentage of the total cryptocurrency market cap, was 4.5% in 2018, and then it grew all the way up to 11.1% in 2020. And as of Q1 2021, it's 11.3%, so not much has changed there. Last 2 points about Coinbase's financials, and then we'll move on to the pros and cons section of Coinbase, so stick around for that. But number one, their average transaction fee percentage is actually 0.57% of every single transaction. And as of 2020, they were finally profitable with a net income of $322 million, like I mentioned earlier in this video. And the last thing you need to know is that even though institutional users are actually driving more of the volume and the trading volume on Coinbase, retail traders are still making up for 95% of the transaction fees. So for example, institutional users in Q1 of 2018 was about 20%, and in Q4 of 2020, it was about 64%. So this is another interesting stat. Institutional users on Coinbase actually make up over 64% of the entire trading volume of Coinbase as of Q4 2020. But they still don't make up most of the revenue. So while retail traders don't actually make up most of the volume because they're trading so frequently, the smaller transactions and the transaction fees pile up and they actually account for most of Coinbase's revenue. So their financials are pretty pumped up, but let's talk about their pros and cons, because the pros and cons are really gonna guide our investment decision on whether or not we buy on day one. All right, so the number one pro is that they've achieved profit in 2020, and according to Bloomberg.com, almost 85% of companies that went public in 2020 were unprofitable. So the fact that Coinbase was profitable in 2020 and wildly profitable in the first quarter of 2021 is a pretty good sign for their direct listing. The second pro is that they've made buying cryptocurrency really easy to buy. It's almost like buying a stock on a different exchange, and so for that, they win the user-friendly award. The third is that they're trustworthy, safe, and secure, so Coinbase hasn't had any problems with accounts being compromised or getting hacked, which I feel like is really important when it comes to buying cryptocurrency. You want a really safe exchange. For example, Kraken has been targeted by hackers in the past with some accounts being compromised. And also, according to the Wall Street Journal, hackers have swiped more than $40 million of Bitcoin from cryptocurrency exchange Binance. The last pro is that it's more than an exchange. So I'm actually going to pull up a quote from an analyst here. And according to him, he says that in the classic US financial system, institutions have found success by each owning different parts of the market value chain. We see companies like Robinhood, TD Ameritrade, and Schwab own the retail brokerage space, State Street and BNY Mellon own custody, PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard own payments, and the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ own the core equities exchange business. Now, according to him, when we switch over the crypto financial system, Coinbase is a serious force, if not the market leader, for all the parts of the value chain. So as we can see there, that Coinbase is doing it all versus it's really fragmented when it comes to the traditional US financial system. So those are the pros, but let's talk about the risks, because I feel like there are way more risks than there are pros, especially if we're going to try to invest in this stock on day one. All right, the first risk we need to discuss is the fact that it could be a race to the bottom, especially when it comes to transaction fees for cryptocurrency exchanges. Like we saw in 2018 and even 2019, we saw a lot of the traditional stock brokerages lower their trading transaction fees from $7 per trade to $0 in a race to the bottom for most of the industry because of what was pioneered by, fintech companies like Robinhood and Webull. Right now, all of Coinbase's actual revenue comes from transaction fees. It's like 96% of their entire revenue makeup. So the fact is that if there is a race to the bottom with more competitors coming into the cryptocurrency exchange space, we could see their moat in terms of their market share actually get slowly diminished. This is especially true if competitors start to lower their transaction fees. I'm sure Coinbase will probably feel pressure to do so, and therefore their overall profitability might actually go down. All right, to get a sense of how ridiculous this is, that Coinbase is basically making all their money from transaction fees, I have this graphic from another SeekingAlpha analyst, which I'll link in the description below if you'd like to check it out. But you can see by this graphic that transaction revenue as a percentage of volume, Coinbase Global is at 0.57%. The ICE, which owns the New York Stock Exchange, is at 0.01%, and same with the NASDAQ, which owns the NASDAQ, 0.01%. The second risk is regulatory risk via any government. So Coinbase currently operates in 52 different countries, but if one of those countries were to say, okay, we don't want to have Coinbase as our exchange for cryptocurrency, then that could be a risk to their profitability and their revenue. The third risk is that if Coinbase is valued at $100 billion, that actually puts it at a higher valuation than the 3 stock market exchanges combined. I kind of alluded to this in the skit earlier, but those 3 exchanges are actually the NASDAQ, the Intercontinental Exchange, and the Euronext Exchange. My point with number 3 is that it's really overhyped. It's it's really highly valued, and we're not too sure how to compare it to anything besides other exchanges. The fourth risk I see is coin concentration. So right now, Coinbase is super reliant on Bitcoin and Ethereum. In fact, 56% of Coinbase's trading volume and equally their transaction revenue is just based on Bitcoin and Ethereum alone. Not only that, Coinbase only offers access to 49 different cryptocurrencies versus Binance offers over 344 different cryptocurrencies and Kraken offers 62 or more. Okay, so with all the information presented today, am I going to buy this listing on day one, and what price is too high? Personally, I'm not going to touch the stock on day one. It was already really valued at a super high valuation of over $100 billion before the quarter one earnings call. And after the earnings call, I think it's even more hyped up. Let's pretend it was an 80 or $100 billion valuation. That is still too much downside risk than upside potential. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to buy Coinbase in the future. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on the Coinbase listing as a whole and see if I can get in at the right price. So what is the right price? Let's talk about that really quickly. So competitors like NASDAQ and the Euronext exchange, they actually trade at what's called 5x price to sales ratio. Now, if we took 5x and applied that ratio at the current sales of what Coinbase currently makes, that's only about a $10 billion valuation, or we're off by like a factor of 10x. Now, what's crazy is that a lot of analysts are expecting Coinbase to trade at 30 to 35x price to sales ratio. So if we took their 2020 sales numbers, that would still only be about $40 to $45 billion at most. That's pretty far off from the $100 billion valuation that they're expecting. But according to the quarter one numbers, if we looked at it based on just the quarter one numbers alone, then maybe that's a little bit closer to 100 billion, but still, we don't actually know how long they can sustain this quarter one growth that they've had. I think we'll have to wait to see what the market has to say after the direct listing. I could see myself picking up some of these shares if, let's say, it debuts at a really high price and then comes down a little bit later, but I still don't know what those numbers are going to look like, and we still don't know what the valuation is going to look like on day one. If you're buying Coinbase stock on day one, you're also hoping that the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum stays high and also continuing to grow straight and up to the right. So I personally am going to be sitting on my hands on day one, and I'll probably just wait and see what happens with Coinbase. Now, if you do want to see what I invest in, and also whenever I buy and sell a stock, you'll get notified. You can check that out in my Patreon portfolio, which I'll link in the description below. So what are you guys thinking of doing when it comes to Coinbase? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, and tick the notification bell so that you can get notified whenever I drop a new video, which here on YouTube is almost twice a week. And also, if you'd like $10 worth of free Bitcoin whenever you buy cryptocurrency on Coinbase, use the link in my description below for that as well. Thanks to all my Patreon supporters. I appreciate you guys being here. I'll see you guys in the next video, hopefully soon. Peace.